Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second section of the course. Just a few more readings about death. One of the things I'd like you to realize from taking any philosophy course is that you're a philosopher. I know you are, because you're a human being. And we're all philosophers. We may not put it on our resume or tout the fact that we're philosophers, but we all are. Because a philosopher, as far as I'm concerned, is just somebody who chances to have some thoughts about the big questions. Some people think they're the unanswerable questions, but we all have a position. We all, whether we know it or not, have some very definite ideas about the nature of reality and the basic essence of being a human being. And we all have what I would call, whether we realize it or not, whether we've ever articulated it or not, a theory of death. Which is to say, although very few of us would say that we know anything for sure about these things, we have some fairly firm ideas about what happens to us when we die. And that's what these three readings are really about. They're all theories of death, and the reason that we read them, the reason that we look to the classic thinking of an Epicurus or Plato, or look to the great Song of God, the Bhagavad-Gita, is not because we want to be told the truth. And we don't need to be told the truth, but we sometimes through reading these texts, we kind of, by thinking about them and thinking about the subjects, we kind of realize what it is that we do believe. And I think that what you have here are three different views of the nature of death. And that's what we sort of have to grapple with here. Theories of death. What happens to us when we die? I mean, people say that that's an unanswerable question and a great mystery, and they're probably right, but I think that some of us have a pretty firm idea. Some of us, like Epicurus, think that, you know what happens when you die? Nothing happens when you die. That's the point. If you read Epicurus' his very powerful but short statements about death, or just a few sentences within this letter that I've given you. You know what happens when you die is well, nothing. Death is just a stopping of existence. It's ceasing to exist. It's the limit or end of our existence, and that's the whole point of death. What happens when you die? Well, nothing happens. And according to Epicurus, it's a good thing, man. I mean, it doesn't hurt. You don't feel sad because you've died. It doesn't make any sense. Death is ceasing to exist. And so maybe life can be painful sometimes. And certainly the process of dying can be painful and scary. But that's a part of life. I mean, dying is part of our experience. Death is the end of all of our experience. So really, it can't really even be thought of as being a bad thing. It's ceasing to exist. And maybe the people around us who are left alive, who loved us or cared about us, they're going to feel sad. They may feel really sad and grieve. But we won't grieve when we die. We won't feel sad when we die. It's just not something that Epicurus thought was worth worrying about. I mean, there's probably lots of things that are worth worrying about. But death, because of its nature, is not one of them. And the idea there is that we become nothing when we die. That death, the whole Epicurean view is predicated on the idea that death is the absolute end of everything that we are. Body, mind, person, that we become nothing. Now the other two texts I'm asking you to look at here, the excerpt from Plato's Phaedo, the great dialogue by Plato that takes place dramatically on the day that Socrates drank the poison after being convicted of corrupting the youth of Athens. And this very different text, the Song of God, the Bhagavad-Gita, most of the first two teachings I'm giving you, have a very different theory of death. I am not in any way any kind of expert, far from it, about the Hindu religion, the Vedic religion, the Vedic texts, but I've read through the Bhagavad-Gita many times and talked about it many times with students, and I'll never forget sort of reading it for the first time and being very puzzled by this text, which is about a warrior. His name is Arjuna, and he's about to fight in this big battle, and he's the greatest warrior. He's like, the Achilles of the Indian tradition, almost a magical warrior, and he's about to go into battle, bloody battle, and kill people and risk being killed. And he looks across before the battle at the opposing army, and because it's a civil war, he knows the people on the other side, the men on the other side, and some of them he's friends with, and maybe even relatives with, and he realizes that he loves them, and that he has no interest in killing them, and so he throws down his bow, his magic bow, his weapon, and says, no way. And I suppose if you come from a certain tradition, especially say a Christian tradition, you think this is a great act of courage on the part of this man to refuse to fight, to refuse to kill because of his love. And what a surprise in the second teaching when the god Krishna, who's been incarnated in the form of his charioteer, he fought in chariots, old style, and one man would control the horses and the other would fight. Well, Krishna is Arjuna's charioteer, but he's also a god, an incarnation of a god, and he tells him, don't be silly, go kill people, and that's just an incredible surprise, from a reader who's not familiar with tradition, I suppose, maybe even a surprise to a reader who is familiar with tradition. But it's his explanation, which is fascinating. Why shouldn't Arjuna be praised for refusing to fight and refusing to kill? And it's a very complex answer, and in some ways the reasoning is way beyond me because I'm not familiar with the tradition. But certainly one of the things that Krishna says to Arjuna is, hey man, you're just taking this way too seriously, this killing business and this being killed business, because if you think you're really killing them, you're wrong. You're killing their bodies perhaps, and perhaps you'll be killed, or your body will be killed in this battle, but they're not their bodies, and neither are you. Yourself, your real self, is something that can't be cut or burned or wet or withered. It's not the kind of thing that can die. There's something eternal in you, and that's what really matters about you. That thing will last forever. Your bodies come and go. Bodies are temporary, but whatever you are, that's forever, and that's the thing you have to pay attention to, he tells Arjuna, is enlightening that soul. Excerpt I've given you from the Phaedo, it is quite a dramatic setting. It's the day of this man's death, Socrates, and he has been, and sort of everyone would acknowledge, unjustly convicted of certain crimes against his city, Athens, the most prominent of which is somehow through his philosophical activities